You already know you are the one people come to. Before anyone has said what is actually wrong, you have usually clocked it. The tightness in a voice that is trying to sound fine. The pause that ran half a second too long. You learned to read a room before you learned to ride a bike, because in the house you grew up in, catching the shift in the weather early was survival. Nothing less than that. And somewhere along the way, you decided that is what the whole thing was for, that the wound became the gift. You are not wrong about that. Carl Jung is the actual reason the words wounded healer exist at all. But follow his own account of this pattern all the way to the end. Past the place, every video about it seems to stop, and there is a stage almost nothing made from this idea ever mentions. You have not heard of it for one simple reason. Almost nobody gets through it. The wound doesn't stop most healers. What comes after it does. There is a myth Jung himself reached for to explain this exact pattern. You have probably heard the first half of it. Almost no one has heard how it actually ends. That ending is the stage. And by the time we get there, you will know exactly what it costs. You already know the term. Wounded healer. Maybe you found it in a podcast, one of the ones breaking down why the empaths and the fixers in a family always seem to be the ones who went through the most. Maybe you found it underneath a video about Chiron, the centaur who got hurt and somehow became the wisest healer of all of them, in a comment section where a stranger had typed out their entire childhood. Either way, you know the shape of it by now. You went through something, and instead of it breaking you, it built something. You got good at sensing what people feel before they say it, good at being the one others confide in without being asked. Calmer taking care of somebody else than being taken care of yourself. Painful, yes, but also, in its own strange way, a gift. And I want to say this part plainly because it is true. Jung really is the reason this idea exists, and in his own writing he said almost exactly that it is the doctor's own hurt that gives the measure of his power to heal. Real pain genuinely does build real perception. There is nothing false in the story you have been telling yourself, so you did the reasonable thing with it. You decided the wound and the gift were simply the same fact about you forever. The beginning of you, the middle, and the end. Help enough people, put enough of what happened to you to some good use, and eventually the books balance. So let me ask you the one thing that does not quite fit. If the wound and the gift are just the same thing, permanently, then why did the same man who told you it was a gift also warn that this exact pattern is one of the most dangerous things a person in this role can carry? If you have always described yourself as someone who is just built this way, do something for me. Type this in the comments. I thought the wound was the whole story. Sit with that question, because it is the first crack in something you have believed for a long time. Let me give the belief a name, so we can look straight at it. What I call the gift ceiling is the quiet assumption underneath all of it. The idea that once you have named the wound and turned it into something useful, the work is finished. That there is nothing above that line. Set that question aside for 1 second. This was never really about whether your wound made you perceptive. It plainly did. What matters now is the stage waiting on the far side of that one, the stage the gift ceiling refuses to admit is even there. Some nights, the screen is the wrong place for this. If you'd rather just listen, Surreal Mind is on Spotify now. The words, in the dark, wherever you are. Links in the description. If the gift ceiling is right, and the finish line really is just naming the wound and putting it to work, then nothing from here on should complicate that. Hold on to that expectation for a minute. Then watch it break. Start with the strangest thing about the man who gave us this idea. Jung did not only praise the wounded healer. In the same body of work, he called it a genuine hazard for the one carrying it. He wrote it out almost like a warning label. Just as every doctor is exposed to infection, he said, the psychotherapist runs the risk of psychic infections that are no less menacing. On one side, the constant danger of getting tangled up in the very wounds you are treating. He put it even more bluntly a few lines later. A neurotic therapist, he wrote, will invariably treat his own neurosis in the patient. That kind of warning only makes sense for something still open, something still fully capable of doing damage. So the wound is not closed the way the gift ceiling quietly assumes. Here is the second thing that does not fit. Go back to that myth. Almost every version of Chiron you have ever heard stops in the same place. He was wounded, and out of the wound, he became the wisest healer alive. Roll credits. But that is not where the story ends, and the part everyone skips is the part that matters. Chiron was immortal, a son of the Titan Cronus. He could not die, which means an incurable wound, for him, should have simply meant this: endure it, wise and needed, forever. That is the logical end of the gift ceiling. Endless noble suffering in service of everyone else, and the myth flatly refuses it. Chiron does not endure forever. At the end, he gives something up, on purpose. Every retelling that stops at wisest healer quietly deletes the only real decision in the whole story. Here is the third thing. There is something uncomfortable hiding inside the gift, and the analysts who came after Jung and studied power inside the helping professions named it out loud. A healer who never actually faces his own wound can start, without meaning to and without ever seeing it, needing the people around him to stay a little bit broken, not out of cruelty, out of arithmetic, because if every single person he helped got all the way well, he would be left alone with the one question the helping was answering for him. Count them. In the last 90 seconds, 3 of your certainties went down. That the wound and the gift are one permanent fact about you. That the myth is a story of noble endurance with no end. That the only person any of this ever touches is the one on the receiving end of your help. Not one of the 3 is still standing. The belief they were holding up is already down. Notice what is happening in your head right this second, because it matters. You are holding a belief you have carried for years, that the wound and the gift are simply the same permanent thing about you, and you are watching it come apart while you are still standing on it. Everything in you wants to put it back the way it was 2 minutes ago, because a half-dismantled idea about yourself is one of the most unsettling places a person can stand. Do not put it back. Stay right here. This is the part that rewrites how you understand your whole relationship to being needed. Here is the shape that is replacing it. None of this means the wound was secretly bad. It was real, and it built something real. But it has a shape, with stages, the way any real threshold does. And almost everyone watching this has already finished the first one. That is not nothing. That is already something most people never manage. If that just rearranged something for you, drop a comment. I didn't know there was a stage after this. If the wound was only ever the opening move, the one question left worth asking is what the rest of the shape looks like, and where exactly the part almost nobody survives sits inside it. Here it is. One stage at a time. It starts young, and it starts as a house, where the weather could turn without warning. Maybe someone drank. Maybe someone was ill, or grieving, or just impossible to predict from 1 hour to the next. And a small child in that house learns to read the pressure drop before anyone raises their voice, because reading it early is the only protection on offer. That is what I call the forging. The wound going in, and a real skill coming out the other side. And it is a real skill. This is the part the gift ceiling gets completely right. Sustained unpredictability trains genuine, transferable perceptiveness. You come out of it able to track a mood across a room, able to feel the thing underneath the thing that is being said. Jung put that mechanism at the center of his entire practice. It is the doctor's own hurt, he wrote, that gives the measure of his power to heal. This, and nothing else, is the meaning of the Greek myth of the wounded physician. In his memoir, he said it even more simply: only the wounded physician heals. And this is where Chiron actually begins, because his story is the same shape. He was a son of the Titan Cronus, and his own mother took one look at him and abandoned him at birth. That is the wound, and it is there from the very first minute. But he was found and raised by Apollo, who taught him medicine, music, archery, the reading of the stars. And out of the abandoned creature came the wisest and most just of all the centaurs, in Homer's words, the one the greatest names of the age, Achilles, Jason, the healer Asclepius, were all sent up the mountain to learn from. The wound made the teacher. So here is what I need you to actually take from this stage. If you recognize yourself in it, you have already done the hard, real thing. You took something that could have wrecked you and turned it into something that helps people. That is true, and nobody gets to take it away from you. If this is the first time anyone has told you the wound part is real, and not just a story you tell yourself to cope, subscribe. What this channel does every week is put words to the parts of your inner life that everyone else skips straight past. But because the wound genuinely built something real, you assumed it would be enough on its own, forever. And here is exactly where that stops being true. Picture where you are now, years down the line. You are the one who is fine, the one who holds it together while everyone around you comes apart. You can take one more crisis, one more phone call at 2 a.m, one more person's collapse landing in your lap, because you always have been able to, and you always have. It feels like proof of how strong you are, which is exactly why it never once registers as a warning sign. That is what I call the immortal wound, the wound that never closes, precisely because the person carrying it has become too good at carrying it to ever set it down. Go back to Chiron, because the myth saw this coming thousands of years ago. His wound came from one of Heracles' arrows, tipped in the blood of the Hydra, and it was incurable. Incurable even to him, the master of the healing arts, the one everyone else climbed the mountain to be healed by. And because he was immortal, the wound had no end built into it. He could not die out of it. He could only carry it, sit with how that combination feels from the inside. A bottomless capacity to endure, welded to a wound that will not heal. That is not a gift. That is a sentence, wearing a gift's clothes. And Jung named the cost of it directly. The psychotherapist, he wrote, runs the risk of psychic infections that are no less menacing than the ones any physician faces, because he is forever in danger of getting entangled in the very wounds he is treating. Between that peril, he said, and the opposite one, armoring up so hard that you lose all your healing power, lies the real work. Read what he is telling you there. The endurance you were proudest of was the wound all along, quietly running the whole operation and calling itself strength. There is a harder question hiding underneath that one, and you have probably never once let yourself ask it. Who are you if you put it down? And that question opens straight onto the stage this whole video is named for. Here is that stage, and I am going to be careful with it, because this is exactly the point where a video like this usually turns into an accusation, and I am not going to do that to you. Notice something first, if you are willing to be honest for a second. That small, strange discomfort when someone you have been helping stops needing you. They get better, they find their footing, they stop calling, and underneath the relief, which is genuinely there is something else, something that feels a lot closer to loss. That is the thing we have to look at, what I call the unspoken bargain. The Jungian analysts who came after him and studied power inside the helping professions, Adolf Guggenbuhl Craig, chief among them in his book on exactly this, put the uncomfortable part into plain words. A healer whose own wound was never actually faced can begin, entirely unconsciously, to need the people around him to stay a little bit broken, so that there is always someone to fix. Jung had already pointed at the same thing, more bluntly. A neurotic therapist, he wrote, will invariably treat his own neurosis in the patient. The unfinished thing in you leaks. It goes looking for somewhere to live, and the people you love are right there. Now hear the part that actually matters, because it is the whole reason I am telling you this. This is not me saying you secretly want the people you love to suffer. You do not. That is the entire meaning of the word unconscious. It is common, it is deeply human, and it runs quietest in people with genuinely good hearts. So say it plainly, at least to yourself. The only version of this that can keep steering your life without your permission is the one that stays hidden, which means the moment you can actually see it, it starts to lose its grip. Nobody here is putting you on trial. This is a look under the hood, that is all. So here are 3 quiet signs of it, and I want you to notice, not judge. 1. An ache instead of clean relief when someone you helped no longer needs you. 2. A pull toward people who are struggling, and a faint restlessness or boredom around people who are steady and whole. 3. The idea of being completely fine yourself, needing nothing from anyone, landing as something unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable, instead of landing as rest. If even one of those landed, comment. I recognized one of those, not as a confession, as a first look. And there is a specific reason some people live inside this exact stage for decades and never once see it, needing to be needed until it quietly costs them everything they have. That is its own video, and it is linked at the end. Because right past this stage is the one the title is about. So look at where you actually are right now. You are watching a video about a wound you probably thought you finished processing years ago, and it is landing harder than a video about a dead Swiss psychologist has any business landing. That itself is information. Sit with why. Here is the ending of the myth, the part almost nobody ever tells you. Chiron, immortal, in a pain that would not stop and would not kill him, was finally released in a way no one sees coming. Far off in the Caucasus, Prometheus was chained to a rock for giving fire to humanity, and there was only one way he could ever be freed. An immortal would have to willingly give up their immortality and go down into death in his place. Chiron did it. He gave up the one thing that had let him endure forever, and in that surrender, his suffering finally ended, and Prometheus went free. He never healed the wound. Giving up his immortality is what finally released him from it. That is what I call the relinquishing, and it is the stage this whole video is named for. Everyone assumes the deadly part is the wound itself. It is not. The part almost nobody survives is this one, giving up being needed, on purpose, the same way Chiron gave up the immortality that had defined him. Setting down the identity that has kept you safe and valuable and legible to yourself for as long as you can remember. That is why so few people ever cross it by choice. It costs exactly what it sounds like. It costs. Most people never volunteer for it at all. They only get pushed through by a burnout that finally takes them off their feet, or a breakdown, or the quiet devastation of watching the people they were fixing walk away, healthy, and simply not need them anymore. Jung, near the end of a life spent inside this exact territory, had something harder and kinder to say to you than a warning to stop helping people. The wound does not finish itself. The role will never finish it for you. No number of other people healed will ever add up to the thing you are actually waiting for. Only you can close it, and closing it means loosening your grip on the one hand you have always led with. So the story you have been telling yourself about your own wound has only ever had a single chapter in it. Here is the rest of it. Put the 4 stages together, and the whole thing finally resolves into one clean shape. The wound went in, and it built something real. That was the forging, and you cleared it, probably a long time ago. Left alone, that same wound learned to carry itself forever without ever closing. That was the immortal wound, and it felt exactly like strength. Left alone longer, it started, without your permission, to need other people to stay a little bit broken, so it always had somewhere to go. That was the unspoken bargain, and the finish line was the relinquishing all along, setting down the need to be needed at all. Which means the thing you have been doing is not quite what you thought it was. You do not have a wound that just needs one more person fixed before it finally counts as worth it. You have a wound that already did its job all the way back at the forging and has spent every year since quietly asking you to let it close. And every single thing you were reading as proof it was simply a permanent gift, the bottomless capacity, the pull toward people in pieces, the discomfort at the thought of being completely fine, all of it was actually evidence of something else, that you are somewhere on a moving arc, most of the way along it, far closer to the end than you ever let yourself believe. You are not failing by still standing in the 2nd stage or the 3rd. Almost everyone is. Nobody ever told you it was a path, so of course you read standing still on it as proof you had failed. Seeing the whole shape is the thing that ends that, and that is the actual reward here. The real one, not a slogan. You understand your own compulsion to help at a level you did not have half an hour ago. The greeting card line, "It's your gift, keep going," explains nothing. What you have now is the actual mechanism, why it built something genuine, why it learned to run with no end date, what it quietly costs the people on the other side of it, and what it would truly take to finish it. Being able to place yourself on that arc with a map instead of just a feeling is the thing you actually came here for, whether or not you could have named it when you pressed play. Here is all of it, compressed to 4 lines. The bottomless capacity to endure was never the gift. It was the wound refusing to close. The comfort you feel around other people's chaos was never just coincidence. It was the unspoken bargain running quietly in the background of a good heart. The discomfort at the thought of being completely fine was never a character flaw. It was the one part of you that has never once been allowed to simply be finished. And the fact that this is landing as hard as it is, right now, was never you being dramatic. It was the stage itself, finally asking to be named. None of this means you stop helping people. It does not make the wound a mistake, or the gift a lie. It just means the goal was always to let the wound finally close. Staying endlessly needed is what keeps it from ever getting there. So that when you help someone now, it comes from a hand that has finally opened. The wound doesn't stop most healers. What comes after it does. Before you go, locate yourself. Which of the 4 are you actually standing in tonight? The forging, where the wound is still becoming the skill. The immortal wound, where you have simply learned to carry anything. the unspoken bargain, where you are only now seeing what the helping has been quietly doing for you, or right at the edge of the relinquishing, ready to set the whole thing down. Whichever one you just felt land, put its name in the comments. Thank you for watching. See you in the next dimension. Empaths aren't broken, they're alchemists in progress. The Alchemist's Path gives you drills, Jung-based boundaries, and 3 exclusive chapter videos to turn overwhelm into clarity. By Surreal Mind, 236-page downloadable ebook in stock. Begin now at thesurrealmind.com.